Welcome to the SEO Insider with your host, Seth Price, founder of BluShark, taking you inside the world of legal marketing and all things digital.
Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to have you back on the Insider here. Today, we have Raquel Gomes from Staffy, co-founder there. Welcome, Raquel.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So look, you guys have made great inroads in bringing the global marketplace to law firms in the U.S. Talk to me a little bit about what that process has been like, right? There's lots of opportunities to hire people from overseas, but you guys seem to have added some value add in a way that others haven't. So talk to me about a little bit how you position Staffy in the market.
Yeah. So yes, we do things very differently over here, starting by the hiring process, how defining the role with the law firm. So a lot of law firms, the first mistake they do when working with offshore remote staff is they're rushed into it. They're desperate to hire. They don't take the time to define the role. So yeah, and then just jumping ahead, the one thing that we do is that we constantly coach everybody that is placed with the law firm because, it doesn't end after you offer the talent. Okay, you have a great match here. You interview them, you hire them, but then there is a whole new stage and a whole new process that you have to have done right in order to be successful, right? The onboarding has to be done right. You have to continuously train them. You have to coach them. You have to mentor them. They have to feel integrated into your law firm in order for you to be successful. So I'll stop there because I'm talking a lot.
There's a lot there. So, law firms hiring is not easy no matter what, domestic, international, et cetera. And sort of my whole take on it is, and this is going back even before Staffy was in the game, was that hiring internationally, if you don't have systems and processes in place, you're dead in the water. Forget about it. Like the difference between culture, sometimes time zones, expectations. So as you've gone through this process, right, you've seen what are some of the biggest mistakes you see law firms make when bringing on a global talent? I hate the term VA. I think it should be put to the side.
Absolutely.
Right. To me, it's tough because even around the table, I have people, they keep reverting. I'm like, no. For us, does it really matter where on the planet somebody sits? Now, there are times where the people you're getting have different education for lower level tasks. And yes, it's a different category, and I get that. But the more that it's thought of as a global workforce, because if you have a person in Omaha that moves to Copenhagen, do you really care if the person is seamless and they check on and they do their hours? Does that matter? But I'll digress. Talk to me a little bit about the mistakes, because I see a lot of people hire international talent and it crashes and burns. And look, they hire domestic talent, it crashes and burns as well. So that's not special. I talk about the rule of three, like in domestic hires, which very often the first person's right, the second person's not right, it's the third. I think that rule of three probably is analogous to some of the issues you see in that people don't even know what they need. Yeah. And what you talked about in the opening, which was putting stuff together. So what are the biggest mistakes you see law firms make?
So that's the first one, not knowing what you need before you hire and just jumping too quick into hiring the person.
And there are times when you think you know what you need, but it's not really what you need. Meaning you think you know what it is, right? You think you need this, but when okay, so first is knowing what you need, because I'm going to come back, remind me, which is what are the things that would allow people to not, and again, we'll correlate to what the mistakes are, understanding that you have to know what you need. Is there a way that you think that law firms could do an exercise to figure out what it really is?
Yeah, I think if you're hiring for yourself, audit your time. Write down everywhere where you're spending your time during the work hours. If it's someone else, if it's another department, have the manager, like, what are the things that you need that person to take on? What are the things that either it's overloading yourself or other team members that you need to hand over? And those should be down to tasks. So that's why we've built this methodology.
For international labor, you're saying, and it's good for both, but if you can get it down to tasks, you have your best chance for success.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's number one.
And I think for smaller firms, that's difficult because they don't have that necessarily. And they're hoping the person comes in with enough experience and gumption to be able to create that. But that's not really what you're getting with a global workforce, especially at the rates you're providing.
Right, exactly. And a lot of law firms, the smaller ones, they think, well, I'm just going to bring someone in. They're going to figure things out on their own. They won't figure things out on their own. You have to have a process. You have to have an onboarding, like you said, and you work with offshore.
Right. So I see it at BluShark, I see it at Price Benowitz, and I see it at BluShark clients, the success.
Right.
We're now at the point of Price Benowitz, we have a full-time onboarder. It sounds like that's some of what Staffy's figured out, though, is that you try to bridge the gap, knowing that many of the smaller to mid-sized law firms don't have that. It's not perfect, meaning it's not perfect in that you can do so much, but you're trying to make up for some of the things that the average law firm doesn't have.
Right. So I would say define the role, which goes down to the task level. Then you have to put the right person to match for that role. So if you need someone to do client facing and intake, it's a different personality, different soft skills than if someone to do paralegal work, so that's why assessing. We use a lot of assessments.
What do you like? What are your favorite assessments?
Cultural index we use.
We love it. How do you do cultural versus predictive? How do you see?
We looked into predictive years ago. I don't know if they're. I would be lying if I say, are they super similar right now?
No, and look, for
international, we're pretty similar, right?
Right. There's definitely pieces there. And I think that for international, culture might have a slight advantage, because the biggest issue is there's an elephant in the room, is that you're coming from a different culture, and can somebody fit in?
Right. Absolutely. So then the assessments, but also, making sure that you're hiring someone who is honest, who's ethical. So I think calling those job references, calling universities to make sure that they're not lying. You don't want to hire liars.
Of course not, but it's easier said than done. Are you this is a thing that I think that is much more challenging, is getting real references from international talent. It's sometimes they've been with other U.S. employers, easier, but very often you're That is
true. That is true. I mean, we have a whole department doing that, right? And they're speaking oftentimes in Spanish with the companies or Portuguese, because all of the talent is in Latin America. But it's true, when you're a smaller company, also, how much time are you really going to spend doing that and tracking down those references? What we do is we don't, we go over the job references and not your personal references. So let's say I say, okay, call me 5 references. No, I'm going to call the places you worked at, and I'm going to call them.
We have a hard rule. Sorry, I apologize for cutting you off. Didn't mean to. But we have a hard rule for myself, which is I don't want a peer reference. It's got to be somebody you reported to.
Yeah.
Domestically, this is bigger. I don't like judges, because they want their law clerks to be employed, and university professors, because university professors, their job is to get somebody a job. It's nice, but it doesn't differentiate, and that's always like, it checks a box, but is it worth checking? What are your feelings on backdoor references? Jack Newton, I think at Clio, we had a great podcast years ago where he talked about making sure that you find out not just the people on the list, but if they've been with an organization, can you find out, for reals, what's going on? What's your feeling on that?
So how, in what specifically?
Meaning there's the people that you're given as references, but they're playing the LinkedIn game, and or if they've been with an organization, you may be able to get a reference that's not listed there. If there's a job they had without a reference listed, that may be a good place to see, oh, I know somebody at that organization. Do they know anything?
Yeah, I think anyone that you can contact that is not a peer or is not their coworker, best friend. The way we start is really by just finding out and calling that organization and trying to find, okay, who was the supervisor? Is the supervisor still around, right? To be able to talk to the supervisor, but also validating with HR that the dates where they say they were there, they were actually there, because sometimes they inflate the resume. And where the roles that they describe are actually what they actually did that. Like we've had people saying they were COO when they were a paralegal. This is like hiring for a VP of client success for ourselves. So it's almost like an investigator type of
Right. No,
work,
no, like
look
you
into
put it.
their social medias and things like that as well.
Very, very interesting. When you're going through that process, do you just, I think we're going to go back to mistakes in a second, but do these people generally sit at home, or do you have offices that they go to in their countries?
Good question. They work from home, but we vet their workspace. We ensure that they have a private office. We don't allow for collocation. We make sure that they have a closed door office where they're working from, that the internet is high speed, all of that.
Yeah. So look, these are for anybody out listening. As a guy who's built my own internal international labor twice, mistakes we've made, making sure that when you do your IT check with for speed and for Wi-Fi, that we end up early days. Oh, they were at a cafe where it was great. Yeah. No, it needs to be at the home. Do you things that I've struggled with, and I'm curious in a home environment, which very often they're in, where there's
the dog barking.
Well, dog barking. I'm not even going there yet. Let's assume we get some decent headphones. But the piece that really gets me is if the kids come home from school and they're on Netflix, is that taking away bandwidth from the job? Yeah. And so figuring that piece out. Again, I'm giving you stuff I've struggled with. I assume you guys are much more advanced and sort of get a sense of making sure that stuff like not learning from mistakes. Like, what are the things you do to make sure that you have a fighting chance with the person?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to find out who else is in the household, if there are kids and things like that. And if sometimes you need to have a second connectivity, especially if you're doing intake and you need to have, you're going to be on the phone, that voice quality, not choppy, or it's super important, right? So those
are there countries that are more difficult? Like we really had trouble. We love the people in Venezuela, but we couldn't get consistency.
No, absolutely. Yeah, we don't. Unfortunately, we cannot.
It's
my husband's in Venezuela right now. My husband's actually from Venezuela. And we had a call yesterday and he's like, I cannot, this is like crazy, So Venezuela is very
The thing with the entrepreneurs, my EOS coach, Caesar, who I'm sure you know, from Miami. Amazing guy. He is our coach for both BluShark and for Price Benowitz. An amazing guy. But another testament to the talent that's in Venezuela that has come out of Venezuela, and that we can't get a stable internet connection. Yeah. Maybe.
I think it's going to change now. We'll see.
With Musk's satellite based, that would be pretty cool. Yeah. Talk about, we have seen something, and we're bouncing. I know we're going to come back to the mistakes, but we have seen pricing go up of talent. Numbers that used to be really cheap have become more expensive as people good know their worth and there's competition, et cetera.
Yes.
But it would be great for the global economy if you ended up bringing an entire country of highly trained talent to the workforce, where the biggest factor was connectivity.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Other mistakes.
Not having a onboarding process, like a set good onboarding process. So a lot of law firms, they think I'm just going to bring, let's say you define the role, you got a person who has a perfect match, but they come in and you just let them try to figure things out on their own. That's a big, big mistake, because you're going to be let down. You need to have an onboarding process. You need to have SOPs. Depending on how the person is better trained, because what you can also learn from assessments, if someone learns better from data, reading SOPs and things like that, or if someone learns better from shadowing and from experience. So either deductive or inductive type of learning. So for example, if you're hiring someone to do intake, it's very important that person can shadow someone else and listen to those calls and see how you're doing things, but also very important that you have scripts, right, for them to follow, and how to deal with objections and things like that. So a lot of small law firms, they don't have SOPs, and they say they don't have time to create those. What we help them do is we help them guide through. First of all, we've created a full onboarding process where we handhold the law firms and we give them homework. We keep them accountable week after week to ensure that that's done successfully. But also we help them. Okay, so if you don't have SOPs, record everything you're training this person, and our coaches help ensure that this person is creating manuals for the law firm, is creating SOPs. Obviously, the lawyer has to review.
Do you start with, if somebody has no SOPs, right? The big problem, right? Nobody has them. I didn't have them for years. And it's too much of a pain to even do these video ones, because by the time you do it, you've grown, it's different, it's evolved. Yeah. Do you have off the shelf ones where somebody could say, yeah, this is good, and make this one change? Or are there SOPs that can be adopted by these firms?
Since we have the Staffy Live service that is a full intake and service for law firms, we have a lot of scripts already created depending on the type of law you do.
You have ones they can sort of prove, because it's so much easier for an entrepreneurial lawyer to be able to say, love it or love it, change this and this, versus I got nothing and starting from zero is really tough. I mean, ChatGPT has helped us with some of this stuff, but it's the idea that you guys have seen the inside of hundreds of law firms and get a sense as to what works. And it's almost like, here's one for family law, here's one for trust and estates. You're able to provide some insights.
That's great. We don't do that because a lot of our law firms, they share the SOPs with us. It's highly confidential. So we are not able to do that. But what we do is we advise the lawyers. So anytime you're talking to your offshore hire and you're training them on how you want things done, we are creating SOPs based on that training.
Right. And my 2 cents, my sales pitch to you guys is that if you had a generic one that didn't violate other firms, but was a generic starting point, because I think that's what law firms struggle with is, there are people that know what they want and there are others that don't. And if you have one that's best practices, go change it to what you want, but at least here's something, because right now there are no words on a page. And I think that is where I've personally struggled, where somebody starts. Yeah. And
that's a good point. And we do that for intake. I think it's a good idea to have it for, case manager, paralegal. We advise them and what we think, why don't you do like this or like that? Well, we don't have those documents right now off the shelf, but that's a good idea.
What is your advice for people when it comes to, look, there's different price points, I assume, based on experience and anything in life. Do you think that experience within the legal space, having worked inside another immigration shop or a personal injury shop, is significant, or can everything be trained? Is it worth paying slightly more to have somebody, especially for a firm that doesn't really know what it doesn't know?
I love that question, and I say no, it's not. It's not worth it. I think when you're hiring the right person with the right skills, the right traits that you've assessed correctly, anything can be bought.
Hire for traits, not for skills.
Hire for traits and skills, but not for experience. There are so many hires, and we've been doing this for 11 years. A lot of people paying like extra and extra because, they came from this PI law firm or X, Y, and Z, and they would be terrible,
Well, no, understood. But let me ask you this, because there's a saying, Woody Allen, Groucho Marx is saying, why would you ever be the member of a club that would have you as the member? So if somebody was willing to work for you, if that other firm gave up on this person, how good could they be? That's the joke, right? So, but one of the things I would say is that with experience, like when I'm hiring, there's a bunch, like when you look at baby lawyers, new lawyers, right? And there's a type of law you're doing. There's a risk that the person's not going to like it. If you're doing intake and the person's done intake for 4 years, there's a pretty good chance they know what they're getting themselves into.
Right.
Forget about the learning curve. How much of a risk is it that, we're looking for, what's a win to you? 3 years? Yeah. Somebody's with the firm 3 years. That's a solid run.
Yeah. So let me reframe that. So having some sort of work experience is important, not necessarily in a law firm and not necessarily doing the type of law that you're doing. But yes, like
do they like it? Because again, it's
getting
money.
Someone out of college that didn't have any zero work experience, it's a higher risk.
But but take somebody who's 10 years out of college, right? 15 years out of college, and you're like, they've never done intake before.
Right.
You train them, they could be done it. And again, there's positives,
right.
But is there a risk factor as to whether they will click in general. Now, I mean,
or
there's
that
risk
they
in
will
everything.
be able to put up with the volume. If you're like being able to be on the phone 7 hours out of 8 is not for everybody.
No.
So
And if you don't get before, that's a risk.
what I would do is I usually would put them through Staffy Live first, and
To see if
depending,
they like it.
yes, so that is not the risk on the client.
How long is Staffy live?
Uh,
How long is Staffy live? How long are they in it?
So it depends. It could be 3 months, could be.
That's amazing. You're doing a 3-month training program.
I mean, we've done it. We've done it for Staffy Live, because I wouldn't put someone who's never done intake with a client that does high volume intake. Now, I will put someone that has never done intake, but they can, I'm talking about full blown intake all day, right? That's different. But someone that has had admin experience, has had client service experience, but it could be a hybrid role. But Staffy Live, it could be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. It all depends. We've done it, and sometimes we just keep them for ourselves too.
And as I know, I've been passionate about this. I thought about building out myself. The idea that you're doing, before, training was either non-existent or at max a week. And the idea that people are seeing the value that if you take global workforce and really give them additional training, part of it was there wasn't a curriculum to give, but over time with expertise, it's there. Anything else before we move on, that mistakes that you see law firms make you wish they didn't make?
So integrating. A lot of law firms, they hire someone, they call them VA, which dehumanizes the person, which is not good. So you're kind of setting yourself up for failure before you even start, because language really matters. If you're thinking, oh, it's a VA, someone who's going to be isolated, I'm just going to send them tasks whenever I feel like it, that's not going to work well. So you have to fully integrate the person into your law firm and consider them as important of a hire as you would an in-person staff, right? And you said that, and
No, I get it, but let me ask you this. Agreed. And look, we've gone as far as we fly a number of international workers in for the office party every year. We try, it's tough as you get bigger, but we try to at least do that as a reward for some of our great talent. Not that they're not all great, but it is different, right? There's a difference domestically when somebody's remote, and there's a difference when they're internationally remote, especially if it comes to coming to on all hands or on sites. What are some of the things you think that can be done, that understanding that you can do Zooms, you can put everybody on there, you can treat people there, but there is a difference in that even if you want to, you can't always get people here. We've had issues with the visas and just coming for a visit. How do you differentiate? You're having a holiday party. They're not there. What are some of the best practices that help understanding you're not calling them VAs and you're not isolating them, and you're including, but there's a certain things that can't happen. What are things that help you push furthest to truly making it part of a group, even though there will be some differences?
Okay. So first of all, we include them in any communication that you have for your company. So you have Slack, Teams, whatever that is, have that person part of it, have the person part of different groups, have the person participate in team meetings, have other people from, let's say if I'm hiring someone to work with me, have other team members work with that person, have them feel part of a team. We also do, like, you have to make an effort to sometimes do some virtual activities. Like you can make, scavenger hunts, or you can do karaoke, things like that.
Sometimes services that you love for that? Anything that you love? During COVID, we hired comedians. We did a bunch of online things, but when COVID was over, we sort of gave up on that. What are some of the ones you like best as far as international team building type activities? So
via Zoom, we love karaoke. We've done Three Truths and a Lie. We've done you have to bring pictures of when you're little, and the other team members have to guess who's that person. There's a big list that you can do once a month, Right.
And that's all on the clock, correct? You're paying for the time.
Yes. And it's part of team building integration. Now, we just came back from Medellin. We flew 20 people to Medellin to be part of a training. And so you don't have to do, if you're serious about investing in offshore and you want to really and you can grow and scale your law firm with leveraging offshore talent. I don't know how many people you have internally that are working everywhere, but you don't have to bring them to the US. You can find somewhere else too, and you can do some offsite.
But agreed. But then you don't have you have some of your people. It's not the same, and that's what I was getting at.
Right.
We've talked about,
or you can take everybody to do an offsite.
Right.
It's more complicated, but you can do a lot of things remotely to make someone feel part of a team. You can meet with them daily in video. It doesn't have to be you, but people it's just like this that we're doing right now. It's like, okay, let's hop on a Zoom. Let's all hop on a Zoom. Let's all hop on Teams. Well,
that's happening to a certain extent. It's the next stage, which is there's we're doing our summer kickoff party. We've done things where, we'd love to be able to Uber Eats, but that doesn't always exist everywhere. But we'll give a budget for, if we're doing a coffee here's a budget to go, bring in lunch or do whatever you're going to do.
And I think you can make that person special by sending something to their homes, like if you can do an activity like, everybody received. So let's say something in the office, like everybody received the wine and the cheese. We're going to do a wine and cheese happy hour. You send something locally to the person,
right.
They're hopping via Zoom.
Right. And it's like everything else. It takes effort. So now you need a person to do that.
Absolutely.
Let me, a couple of little things. One just a blip. We've seen this both domestically, but we've also seen it internationally. Issues of people double dipping, with international work. What are some of the things you've seen that can help prevent, again, hopefully you're testing and you're getting the right people, but, some nominal percent are going to abuse the system.
Right.
Some people think, hey, if they're hitting their KPIs, who cares? You can do whatever the hell you want.
Right.
But that's a real something out there. I assume it's making sure the KPIs are being met, because if they are, it's harder to game the system. Yeah,
that's one. I think it's very easy to measure intake and sales, right? Like, for example, we use MoneyTask internally. Everybody has MoneyTask. But my sales team doesn't need to use MoneyTask, because I know if they're performing, they're selling, right? And this is true for anyone working remotely, so you're nailed on the KPIs. If you have good KPIs and you're monitoring them, monthly or every so often, you're going to see if the person's performing. But you can also use tools like MoneyTask. We usually use MoneyTask at the first 3 months of someone being assigned to a law firm.
That measures mouse strokes and looks at
they measure all the activity and
the activity. Look, one of the things that we don't look at it regularly unless there's a problem. We never look at it. You know what I mean? It's right.
Exactly.
But it's activity. It's the last thing you want to measure. That said, when you do see somebody using a machine to do it, which we've seen, that would be an indication there's more problems. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not even, to one extent, you're not using it because you're like, you work 5 minutes less or 10 minutes less. That's not the game. But when you see, it's just another tool to determine, is there something that's not right going on?
Exactly. And usually you will only check if there's a problem if you see that the person's not being productive. Like you said, nobody is micromanaging or being there watching. But it's very useful when, you say, interesting, this person is not responding as quick, or this person is not, didn't deliver. Didn't the deadline passed. Then you check and you're like, or you say, maybe they're focusing on the wrong things. Maybe you use as a tool to learn how is that they're working and to coach them. Because that's the other point, to coaching and mentoring. That's why we implemented the methodology of having coaches assigned to each rep assigned to the law firms. It's people that they're talking to, because it also helps them feel integrated. It helps them, so you train them, you select the person, you select the tasks, then you put the person to do the tasks. You train them, you have a university, you train them for the tasks, but now it's time for real life. So people, they have questions, they get stuck, and sometimes many times the team is very busy, and you don't want someone to be sitting there doing nothing, specifically, especially in the beginning. So it's important to have a key people that they can go to. In our case, we have coaches assigned to help and support the law firms. But if you're doing this on your own, It's important that they know who to go to and they have an open office, open door opportunity to be able to, not to get unstuck so that productivity is not affected.
One thing that I've seen, and there are two final questions. One thing I think that they're sort of tied together. One thing that I've seen is that people sort of sometimes try to put tasks with a global workforce that might not be easily done from somebody, especially coming in off the street who's not highly experienced, case manager versus a legal assistant. Legal assistant, you give somebody tasks, it's there. Case managers, forward facing, have many, many different responsibilities.
Yeah.
Well beyond what you could train in a week, a month, or even 2 months, probably. What is your feeling on creating a bench with your international team so that you can figure out who has the potential to go to the next step, and that through osmosis and learning the firm and learning the language, that they're able to get to the point where they can be elevated? Now, somebody's been a case manager somewhere, you could evaluate it, but you talked before about somebody coming in with skill, with traits, not skills.
Right.
Do you see people trying to put people in a position that's unrealistic?
Yes.
Without those touch points, and it's destined to fail.
Absolutely. So it all starts with so that's why, so we have a dashboard that you choose the tasks and you can have different categories. So in a case manager, for example, they're going to be doing client facing, they're going to be doing some legal, they're going to be doing some admin tasks. It's important they get trained specifically in how to do those tasks. And yes, to your point, we have a bench of like they're there, and
hopefully you have your utility infielders if you're, and then
they're going through the training and they're doing tasks while they're waiting, and we are assessing them throughout the whole time.
Move up to those pieces, because we've seen that in like the intake space. It's one thing to do intake; it's another to do sales. Right. If you're doing intake and it's being passed off to somebody else to sell, like in criminal or family, great. It's one level. But when it's somebody who's closing a PI case, there's a lot going on, and you probably don't want that as a first job coming out, but rather somebody who's done other things and elevated to that, which sort of pivots to my last point, what I've been sort of giving a lot of thought to. This was a domestic hire, but I think the analogy could be made for any global person, which is we hired people and 2 of them didn't work within a short period. I've 300 employees between 2 organizations. We have a lot of hiring experience, and we made 2 mistakes and reflected why. 1 person left and 1 person we pushed out. And what it looked like was we didn't pay enough to get the talent that we needed for that position. And that there's one thing about saving money, but there's another that when there's a marketplace, and there's more and more of a marketplace, more than when you even started Staffy, that there's people out there that know what they're worth, that there starts to be a point where that if you try to pay too little, that there's a good chance, as happened to me, that things are not going to work out, versus understanding that there are, if an expert tells you, like a Staffy, hey, you need somebody at this level, trying to pay less may seem like a way to save money, but very often will end up with, there's a reason it didn't work out. We put too little expertise behind what we needed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that sort of,
I think in the case that the example that you mentioned, so it seems like it was like you didn't put enough thought to define exactly what the person would be hired for. Was it?
No, we knew what it was. We just paid too little. Somebody, like, we knew what we wanted.
Yeah.
We know that.
Right.
And we thought that, like, and sort of, when people come to a global talent group, they're like price sensitive potentially. Right. So they're trying to save money off of, let's say, domestic labor.
I would say that you cannot be cheap. You have good talent. You have to be abundant in the way you think, and you have to obviously pay well for the talent. People have to feel appreciated. If someone is feeling like they're being taken advantage of, or in any way, payment is one of the ways. You're going to have high turnover. So it's really important to treat your people well, right? In different ways. Payment is one of the ways. Sending little things like we're saying, like including them in the party, like even if they're via Zoom, or sending them gifts to their house so they can feel appreciated is another way. I think the better you treat your staff, the more rewarded you will be back. And
right. No. Look, I know that money is not the first thing.
But I think if lawyers are going into this saying, I'm just going to get cheap and get squeezed the most out of it, the most that I want, they're going to be, it's not going to work for them.
Agreed. And I'm going one step further, which is when
it's not right now, we're at a point that it's not about the money. It's about having great talent, loyal talent, hardworking. Like you said, prices are going up. People are like, it's getting this global workforce that, there's law firms that are like, they don't even know, and they overpay, and then somebody else now wants more. What's happening in the market. So it's beyond the price, but having and finding good people that are loyal, people that are going to stay a long time working for you. And what we hear is that that's harder and harder to find in the US.
Right. And that's, I think, where, as much as the international number has gone up, the delta that as groups like yourself have helped figure out how to create those systems for law firms,
right,
and train and cultivate and give best practices on keeping people happy, that it becomes, as what I'm looking at is, I want to be able to retain my US talent. And then as I grow, add a global team member so that I'm able to cover more, right, and grow that way, rather than, have two people at a mediocre salary in the US, right, where they're going to break. I'm either not going to get the right people, or I have the right people and they're not going to stay, but maintaining the people, keeping the people I want to keep, and while at the same time giving an opportunity at the other end, and that the combined number hopefully works, even though it's not, when we started, Philippines talent was $2 to $5 an hour. It was crazy. Right. But the idea is, if you're looking at it as, I need a job done, and what's that entire team going to cost me? Yeah. That then you're looking at it from what does it take to get the job done, rather, because I would argue that at the lowest end, the risk is that the pure task-based people are the ones that are going to be at risk for AI job loss. And that as you get people that are integrated into your team that help solve the widget, yes, you'll have AI, but that's going to be for the stuff at the bottom. And hopefully that right. allows your team members to excel. And that's where balancing domestic, international, and technology, sort of that whole mosaic, is what's going to give you profitability.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think the higher levels you can hire for some roles in the US, you can get the support to them from Latin America. And then you have the magical formula.
Well, Raquel, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for your time. You've been great for the industry. I know that when people started off with international labor, it paled in comparison to what Staffy's put together. So congratulations for all that you've done, and thank you for what you've done for the industry.
Thank you, Seth. It was a pleasure to be here, and you're such a smart guy. So great talking to you.
Thank you so much for your time, guys. We thank you for listening, and we can't wait to see you back here.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the SEO Insider with Seth Price. Be sure to check back next week for fresh insights into building your brand's online presence. Episodes are available to stream directly on BluShark Digital's website.